The possum. It was already there when I got out of my car. I could see it in the road, turning from left to right, rubbing its back against the blacktop and waving its arms in the air like my dog does in her dog bed when she's happy or she's just been fed. It seemed odd for such a stoic creature to be celebrating in a public fashion, so I stood at the car for a little while. I could feel at least one neighbor looking out at the window, watching me watch the possum. I didn't care. I've never cared what my neighbors think of me. I began to realize that while its front legs were celebrating, its back legs weren't moving at all. They flopped back and forth aimlessly as the body turned. What I was witnessing wasn't possum play after all, it was pain. I'm not one to complicate my life with the pain of others. I've learned not to trust a possum. I tried to pick up a dead one once with my shovel. They appear to be passive and dead in one moment and alive and defensive in the next, hissing and showing their fangs, just like some of the neighbors. I decided whatever was going on in that street, it wasn't something I could change. I locked the car, opened the trunk, took out a bag of groceries, and was headed for the back gate when a truck appeared, turning onto our residential street. The possum stopped moving. The truck drove slowly and carefully around the possum. I went into my house. When I placed the groceries on the kitchen table, which is by a large window that faces the street, I saw a crow take the possum tail in its beak and try to drag it to the curb. A murder of crows appeared on the lawn behind them. The possum did not respond to any of this. I assumed the crows were planning to eat the possum, which looked like it had died. But when it comes to possums, one can never be sure. I don't trust them. I asked myself, what would David Attenborough do in this situation? I closed the curtain, and I didn't interfere with nature. The next morning, I was cleaning floors and cooking for an afternoon gathering with our adult children. Lori, who has more words to spare than I could ever collect, was telling me about her television friends, actual acquaintances, and the total strangers that she's been talking to. It's hard for me to keep stories straight when I'm only half listening. I think in images more often than words. The image of a crow trying to drag a possum to the side of the road started following me around the house like a ghost. It was a reminder that, like my friends who have recently made a passage, I'll be going the way of the possum soon enough. The memory of a suffering animal and the hungry crows kept floating across the screen of my mind. I watched with a detached interest, and I worried about my lack of empathy. I interrupted Lori's monologue and told her that I wasn't being a good listener because I'd been thinking about a possum that died in the street yesterday, and she said, "Our possum? How big was it?" "Not very big," I answered. "It was thin, like a ferret." "Oh, no, it was the baby," she replied, and she began to tear up. I suppose I don't feel empathy because I don't have a relationship with the possums that frequent our bushes. I keep my distance. But Lori knows everybody in this neighborhood.